Okay, this is the SNARS Q&A general session for January 8th, 2022. This is open for about, maybe till the top of the hour, which is about another 40 minutes or so, if we have that long. We can talk about anything. Usually the first thing we talk about is questions for Jeff or Jim or myself about the presentation. So, and then if people have any general questions about ham radio, after a while or around SNARS, we can answer them. So if anybody has any question, go ahead and unmute yourself and give your call sign. Then I'll acknowledge you, and we can go from there. Who'd like to go first?
Well, maybe I can jump in.
Yeah,
Tom, Kilo Juliet 7 Tango Kilo Romeo. If any one of the three of you, Jeff, Jim, or Barry, have any comments about how to get in, how to have an overnight stay for like an 8-year-old Cub Scout from Portland, Oregon, my grandson, love to get that information on our website on how to make that connection.
Let me, I'm going to take your call sign down here, and your contact, your email is okay in QRZ.
Oh yeah.
What was all, I don't know how many.
Kilo Juliet 7 Tango Kilo Romeo,
okay.
Tom.
What I'm going to do is go home and then give you the name of the person that does the liveaboard, and that's the contact you'd want to call about being able to stay overnight. So I'll try and get you that info no later than tomorrow. I don't know what time I'm going to get home tonight. So
no rush, Jeff, and that's a great idea, Barry, of getting together, a group from here to go down there, especially with kids.
And I would imagine, Jeff, you can tell us, I would imagine that you probably have, well, not only visitors from all around the world, but groups of kids that come from a distance, either Reno or Portland or whatever. I mean,
yeah, I had a good friend in the Reno area. His son's been down here with the scout group, and all kinds of groups. We just have groups of people that get together and want to spend a night on board the ship, and they're able to do that. So what I'll do is, like I said, Tom, I don't know if I can even get it today because it's Saturday, but I'll definitely by the first part of the week have the contact person for the liveaboard for you.
Absolutely no rush, and just something for the future. And my grandson's uncle actually was a thoracic surgeon on board a ship off of Vietnam, so he might even fly out from South Dakota to join in if that were ever to work out.
Oh yeah, sure. Everybody's welcome. Like I said, we're here to have visitors, so that'd be great, and I'll get you that information.
Okay, thanks. And if we end up doing something with SNARS or kids, whatever gets put together, whenever, we surely get it announced, and you can have different people come from different places. Thank you, Tom. Did somebody else have a comment?
Kilo Juliet 7 Delta Hotel Yankee.
Hold on one sec, Ed. Let's go to Wes. Go ahead, Wes.
Well, I got 3 questions. First of all, what was the ship's complement?
Crew was a little bit less than 3,000.
Okay, I was wondering because I know some of the bigger ships, you got 4,000 to 5,000 people.
Yeah, the modern aircraft carriers are a little bit bigger than we are now. Quite a bit bigger, actually.
Quite a bit bigger, yeah. Second question, I noticed on your kill and destroy list there, you had the Yamato list. Did you guys participate in that?
Yeah, the Hornet participated in the sinking of Yamato.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, last question is this on a CIC, guys writing backwards, man. How can you get that straight after you do something like that for a few years, I've said, to write forward instead of backwards?
Yeah, it's too bad that that's not a job skill you can transfer to somewhere else, because that'd be something to put on your resume. Hey man, I can write perfectly backwards.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Before we go to Ed, DHY, Derek posted a question on the chat, and he said, what kind of CW keys are used, paddles, bugs, etc.? So
I do 99% CW here. Most of the paddles are Vibroplex iambic paddles. We do have a bencher kicking around, and one other type, and it's mine, and I can't. It's a Vibroplex, but they bought another company and put their name on it. So most of them are Vibroplex iambic paddles. If you want to bring your own paddle or a bug down or whatever, that's not a problem. It's pretty easy to do, and plug into the system and use your own paddle or bug or straight key for that matter.
Okay, cool. Let's go to Ed DHY. Go ahead, Ed.
Hi, I was just wondering if there's a charge to come onto the boat or stay overnight, or how does that work?
Overnight fees, I'm not sure of. General admission is $20 per person. I think children and seniors and veterans is $15.
I can tell you that our troop paid, and I'm sure they give special pricing for scout groups when they do the overnighters. It was very reasonable. I think it was somewhere around $75 for an overnighter, and that included 2 of our meals. But I'm not, like I said, that might be special scout pricing, but still very reasonable. It was
per
an awesome
person.
experience.
Was that per person?
Yeah, that was per scout.
But also, we're very close to Oakland, so if you didn't want to spend the night on the ship and smell like bunker oil when you left, you could get a hotel room in Oakland, and we're literally 10 minutes away from downtown Oakland. So there's plenty of hotel rooms there, or even in Alameda. So not a problem to find a place to stay.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Ed?
No, I would I'd like to plan a trip down there if anything's happening. So
yeah, I think it's such an experience. It's something that is as good as today was. I won't say this doesn't do it justice. All the sensory input and the experience and being on the ship, and then as a radio operator getting on the air is so amazing. I can't quite explain it exactly. So you can go down one-on-one. Let's just kick it around and see over time. Maybe we can do something as a club, and if you got to drive 4.5 hours, club with kids might be a perfect thing. So we'll see. David K6VLH just wrote on the chat. He says, nice presentation. Served on the USS America CVA 66 and USS Constellation CVA 64 in 1970, 71, 72, Vietnam vet around the world. I would imagine we have several people on that have been in the military. So
yeah, I was going to say, I saw some hats out there. So I just want to say thank you very much to all of you for your service out there.
Good. David, AF6MN, do you have something?
Yeah, I just wondered where the ship was built.
Ship was built Norfolk, Virginia, at Newport News Naval Shipyard.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to show a few more pictures of my tour, and then maybe Jim can do the same also. I have yours up, or you can load them. Before we do we have any more questions for Jeff or myself or Jim? Okay. Let me bring up a few more. Let's see here. Okay, so I was on November 26th, and let's bring up my thing. Thing is a technical term, Okay, so
I wanted to add one other thing. When you're making the trip from Reno to the Hornet, HRO is right off the freeway along the way, so you can definitely make.
Yeah.
You can, Sacramento now, no longer in Oakland.
Yeah, so you can make a great. It was definitely a fun Radio Geek travel experience too.
That's very cool. I'll go through these quickly. Several of these will be it's just different views at different times. This is the Friday after Thanksgiving this past year. You can see San Francisco in the background there. Driving through the old Alameda Naval Air Station is a kick. GPS gets a little confused, but you're driving along and all of a sudden you come up to the water. One question I have, or just make a comment, I would have said it's in dry dock. Then I did a little research, and it's not in dry dock. It's just stationary. What's the terminology you use since it's in the water, Jeff?
We're just tied up at the pier. These piers were used during World War II. So the Hornet, this is a pier that it was tied up at during the war, and a lot of other ships were tied up at these piers during the war. So it's definitely not dry dock. These piers were set up for Navy ships. So we're just tied up at the pier.
You want to see dry dock? Go out there by Pittsburgh. Look out across the bay. You'll see a whole bunch of ships that are in dry dock.
Gonna go through the pictures. Here's a big, huge anchor on the ground there. This is a sunny, nice day, and here's the USS Hornet sign. You know, from the ground, from the dock, it's ominously big, and it's the first time they came up on it. Jeff came down and got me in on the ship, and next thing you know, I was in. You can see a lot of the antennas here. It's pretty amazing. You want to talk about, Jeff? You want to briefly talk about
one of the antennas we're trying to refurbish. That's the disc cone. That's after the island on the edge of the flight deck. And when the ship was decommissioned, they took a lot of the antennas and just put them below deck in storage. And then when the ship came out of storage and was set up as a museum, people just took the antennas that didn't know anything about radio and made it so that they looked like they were supposed to on the ship. And this disc cone has some parts missing, and we need to manufacture some of the parts and get it back on the air. And it's actually a broadband antenna, and it's actually two antennas. The lower half and the top half are two separate antennas, and we should be able to probably use this 80 through 10 meters once we get it fixed. And I think the people on USS Missouri actually have one on their ship, so that's where I'm hoping we'll be able to get some plans to go off of.
Am I correct, if I understand from you, Jeff, that this is a project where you're doing funding to help get money to get a crane to do the work? Is that
right? Exactly. Yeah.
So earlier on in the chat, Jim put a GoFundMe page on there, so you can just find it.
I just put it on there again. Okay. And yeah, I mean, every $20 adds up. So
I think you donated a little bit of money. So
yeah, I think it's awesome way to, throw a little bit of money.
Well, that one's turned. You can turn your head to the right. You can get an idea of the amount of stuff there. You want to describe this a little bit, Jeff?
Oh, this is the top of our rack. You can see one and part of another one of the RF350s there in the rack. And then above that, we've got a patch panel. So on the right are the radios, their operating positions. And every operating position is named after a Essex class carrier. So right now I'm sitting at Hornet. We've got Essex, we've got Intrepid, and I think Lexington. And those are the PL250 or SO239s you see coming out of the right. In the middle, I think we've got dummy load. And then on the left, those four are antennas. So what we do is we take a patch cable from the right, which is the radio side, put it into one of the bandpass filters up above, and then out of the bandpass filter go down into the antenna. Actually, I'm having our current club meeting is today also. I'm doing that meeting afterwards. We have bandpass filters for every band except for 12 meters, and I'm gonna propose that we buy our 12-meter bandpass filter today, and then we'll have a full set. But yeah, that's how we get the stations on the air, and we're all able to get on the air at the same time.
Two kind of questions side by side I want you to kind of talk about briefly. One of them that you shared with me is about the room itself, what it was before and how you guys moved, and then a little bit about the cabling, which you can see at the top way up here, about how they ran it. That was an amazing story.
Yeah, when I first came on the ship 7 years ago, the amateur station where we are now was in a different part of the ship. It was right next to the captain's import quarters. And there's actually 2 very small compartments. We only had 3 HF operating positions, and the compartments were separated by a passageway. So it really wasn't that great. And we weren't that close to Radio Central. I want to say 5 years ago, maybe 6, we were forced to move because they wanted to use the captain's quarters for offices for staff. And we were given the compartment we're in now, which is much better. And it's the former Air Operations Office. So the officers that ran or were in control of the air groups were in this compartment that we're in now. And we don't only have the area where all the HF stations are that I'm talking to you from now, but right on the other side of the divide here, we have our G-dunk, or a little kitchen area. And we've got a microwave and a refrigerator and everything we need. Domino's delivers too, but sometimes you don't want Domino's all the time. So we can keep things in the fridge and heat things up, and a coffee machine, of course. So we have all that in this one compartment, which is a lot more convenient. As far as the cabling, I'm not sure what exactly you were talking about, Barry, but you can just barely see some of the cabling that runs throughout the ship right above the bandpass. And that cabling is everywhere. And that's one of the things that's amazing when you're on the ship, because you're thinking, how could they have strung all this cable in 13 months? And actually, when we moved radio rooms, what we had to do is take feed line and run it to this new radio room, and we ran it through those cable runs. But since we wanted to keep everything looking historically accurate, we took our LMR 600 and had to put it on the top of those cable runs so people couldn't see it when they were on the ship. And that was quite a job. I was sore a couple of weekends after running that cable. We have about, I want to say, the runs to the antennas are probably about 200 to 300 feet.
So it's all the way, just to point, if you go to the top here at 14 megahertz or 28 megahertz and you look above, it's a little hard to see, but there's a bar here, and above the bar, there's a bunch of cables, not coax cables, but cables that look like...
I don't know if you can... It's kind of hard to see, but if you see the right there running across, that's where all the cables are run through those metal bars. So...
Let me continue, and then we'll take some more questions. So this is, describe what this is. This is
one of the verticals that we're using on the edge of the flight deck. And you could see we have an auto tuner down there at the base. And coax goes up to that auto tuner, and then we go into the vertical. And the verticals are about 20 feet long. And one, I think, is a little bit shorter, but we're pretty much able to use those anywhere from 80 meters through 10 with no issues, really. So we've got auto tuners on all the antennas. They're not all MFJ, but this one is, and it works out well for us.
We'll probably have another picture, I'm not sure, but these, do I have this correct, Jeff, that these lie down horizontal across here?
When the ship was in air operations, those verticals would fold over horizontal so that when planes were taking off and landing, they wouldn't be fouled by the verticals on the edge of the flight deck. A wingtip wouldn't catch it. So you could see more of them here. And
down here horizontal.
Yeah, those would fold over horizontally.
This you just said earlier today that this ship is no longer here.
Yeah, that ship's gone now. Those were ships. There were 3 of them. They were, I think they were Maersk Line cargo ships that were getting ready to head off to the scrapper. And before they went to the scrapper, they brought them over here to take off anything of value. And right before this one left, I actually got to go up under the bridge because we were snagging stuff that we wanted off of it. And the bridge on that ship and the crew's living areas look like the Ritz-Carlton compared to us.
Describe this. You want to describe this?
Yeah, that's
three-wire?
our fan dipole there. Those 3 wires coming down. That's another antenna we use. So the bottom is about 60 feet. The top is about 100. And then what the antenna we're going to restore are the wires going up from that yard arm all the way up to the top of the mast on top of the island. So once we get that there, that'll be our highest antenna, and that'll probably be 150 feet, 175 feet at the top.
I want to show a perspective for those of you that might know San Francisco. So this is San Francisco, and way over here you see a little tower. This must be Suture Tower.
Right.
So, you know, as a crow flies to Suture Tower to you is, I would guess it's got to be less than 12 miles.
Yeah, I mean, just across the bay. I mean,
across the bay and up the hill. So that gives you gives you an idea. Let's see what else we got here. Just some more different pictures.
Those 2 black, those 2 whips that are kind of connected together by that black bar. Those are antennas that we use. They're at 120 feet. We have there's a box in between them. We put our auto tuner in there, and that's where the auto tuner for that antenna is. That's the S3 again on the flight deck.
The picture of the vertical leaned over.
Yeah, that's one of the verticals horizontal. And I see a question there asking if the antennas are resonant. They're not, so we have to use auto tuners on all of them.
Including the fan dipole?
Yeah, everything. Most of the antennas on the ship were pretty broadband, just so they could be used on a variety of frequencies. So, of course, back then they didn't have auto tuners. We've actually got big tuners in some of the transmitter rooms for the ship's antennas.
I was on the ship with Jeff. We were up on the deck here, and I asked a question about the catapult, and he said it's not much different way back then than today. And so I went back when I got to this family member's house. I got back and I did some video searching for different videos, and it's quite amazing to see it land and take off, and at night everything they do.
But one thing about our catapults is our catapults are hydraulic, and most of the Essex class carriers were converted over to steam, but the Hornet kept its hydraulic catapults. And part of the engine room, if you ever go on the engine room tour, they'll take you down to all the catapult machinery below the hangar deck.
Beautiful day in San Francisco here, and this looks, I can't tell, is this Coit Tower maybe? Maybe
that's Bay Bridge.
Oh, Bay Bridge, yeah. And you can see the skyline there. Here's a good picture of it. Very good picture of it. Okay, you want to describe what this is?
Yeah, this is in Radio Central. So, like I said, the ship had 113 antennas, or over 100 antennas, 13 radio rooms. So there were a lot of receivers on the ship. So this patch panel allowed people in Radio Central to route receiver audio to different places on the ship. And this board's a lot bigger than this picture, and it's 2-sided. So when you get into Radio Central and you look at the board, it's pretty impressive, but that's what that is.
I'm going to go back to the chat. So one question you answered was, are the antennas resonant to tuners? You answered that, use tuners. And Tyler, K7TDM says, I take that most of the antennas are resonant on military bands.
They're, like I said, they're pretty broad banded because, again, the military frequencies were not bunched together closely. And, you know, when the ship was using HF, they had to take conditions into account just like we do now. So I'm sure that back then, choice of frequency depended upon propagation. So not really resonant on any one frequency. I know that we came and checked to see where they were actually resonant at. And I think a lot of them were like weird resonant frequencies like 8 megahertz or 4 megahertz, which might be military bands, but that's one thing I'm not sure of.
Similar to ham radio, it's not all bunched together. Derek asked a question or a comment on the text on the chat. Do they have similar access to Civil Air Patrol squadrons?
Oh, I'm sure And what I'll probably end up doing too, Barry, is giving you the contact for the liveaboard, because it seems like we're getting a lot of questions about
Yeah,
that.
we'll get all that.
Any group is welcome. It's not just specifically limited to Cub Scouts.
Yeah, I did see other groups that had pictures on the Maine Hornet Facebook page from, you know, Boys and Girls Club and just a bunch of different other groups as well. So
yeah, we have the Sea Cadets. The Sea Cadets sometimes are here for a week. So there's all different kinds of groups that come on board.
Are these all R390s maybe?
Those are R390s, and that's a receiving position. You can see the mill or the typewriter down there. And it's hard to see, but in the little cubby hole to the right of the desk there, there's a CW key. So you could transmit from there also, but the transmitters weren't in there. That's in Radio Central, just some of the books we have on display. Navy books for radio operators. Again,
hold
go ahead.
on one sec. You told me a story around this. If it wasn't this picture, it was another picture about somebody that came aboard or somebody you talked to that was related to an old captain or something. Do you remember that?
Oh, I had talked to somebody on the air, and they said, "Oh, my father-in-law was, I think it was father-in-law was captain of the Hornet." And you know, usually I'm like, "Yeah, okay, right," but when you go into the captain's conference room, they have pictures of all the former captains. So I remembered the name the guy gave me. And I went into the captain's conference room, and sure enough, his father-in-law was one of the former captains of the ship.
I might have a picture of that in a minute. Thanks, Jeff.
This again is in Radio Central. And don't ask me what all that stuff does, because I got to go read the little tags on it when I'm in there, because there's plenty of gear in Radio Central.
Am I correct by saying, because you gave me the private tour, is Radio Central not part of one of the normal tours?
No, it's not. No.
So that, you know, if we do something as a group, whatever that looks like, kids, no kids, whatever, we'll, you know, Jeff will be there and we'll get some extra.
Yeah, I can definitely. I have keys to this this space, so we can that's one of the places I like showing visiting hams.
That would be fun. Tell them about the red stuff.
Yeah, everything that was read in the radio room was for encrypted data. So the actual encryption machines are no longer on the ship. They were removed when the ship was decommissioned. But the switches and things like that are still on board. And everything that was encrypted is in red. And even the cable runs are striped red in the overhead if encrypted data is going through them. Teletype machines.
You know, it's interesting. This must be teletype receive opposed to because there's no keys on it, right?
Correct. More teletype machines. There's one room that's nothing but teletype machines, and you can see in the cable runs above the teletype machines those red bands painted on them. That was all encrypted information that went through these teletypes. More teletypes. Can transmit on these. But this is some of the data we have on the encryption machines that were taken off the ship. A lot of the stuff, even in Radio Central, was demilled, and the military actually went in and made sure that it was not operable. So even though we have all that gear in there, most of it doesn't work because it was destroyed internally so that it couldn't be used.
Question Eugene asked KB7J's, all the cables have armor webbing on the outside of the cables and went through the bulkhead.
I don't know. It doesn't look like armor webbing to me when I touch it. It just looks like regular cabling, but that's not something I'm sure of. And it just looks like it's passing through bulkheads in the normal way.
Whether it's armor or not, he says it's very difficult to run. I would imagine definitely difficult to run.
Well, just running our feed lines was very difficult.
That was LMR 400 above it.
LMR 600, yeah, and it was a bear.
Did you, on these two pictures here in the Cipher machine, did you mention to me, do I have this correct, that this was the U.S. version of like the German Enigma?
Yeah, it's kind of the U.S. version of the Enigma machine. It works the same way with the different rotor wheels. It's just more more of the equipment that was on board that was taken off. I mean, back at the time, it was state of the art, and they didn't want to fall into the wrong hands, so all that equipment was removed.
Actually, a good picture of the fan dipole.
Yeah, there it is. And it looks like we just, yeah, that's the day I think we just put up our Christmas lights. So you can see some of those too.
So I just mentioned the thing about the water leaking in the plastic. That's kind of an.
Oh, well, in the radio room, we have a little bit of an issue. Well, the ship has a bit of an issue in that the flight deck is almost 80 years old and it's starting to leak. The way the flight deck was constructed is it was teak wood and it was over a very thin, it was overlaid over a very thin metal sheet. And it's starting to leak. And what happened a couple of years ago is the F-14, when they were moving it on the flight deck, came through in the compartment next to ours. And so now we have a leak in one of the corners of the radio room. And usually the first couple of, in fact, you can see some of the plastic behind me now, but the first couple rains of the year where the wood's dry, so the flight deck will leak through into our compartment. So I usually cover everything with plastic when I leave just to make sure nothing gets damaged. But I came in this morning, there wasn't much water at all. So the wood is swelled up and we're probably going to be fine for the rest of the rainy season. Until we get the flight deck fixed, it's just something we have to deal with.
So that's the last picture here. I'll show a few more. And Jim, do you want to talk about this? These are your pictures, but I'll load them. Do you see that, Jim?
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of these.
Tell me when to go to the next picture. I'll just whip through them.
I mean, a lot of these we've already seen at this point, but so go ahead. One thing that I heard last night, doing a little bit of research again to refresh my memory on the CIC room, but the anchors are 15 tons, I believe. I heard, but just amazing. Go ahead. That's my son Rylan too, by the way.
What age is he?
Go ahead,
Rylan.
And he's actually like 7 feet tall, right?
Not quite yet, but yeah, go ahead.
That's on the floor in our radio room. That's the insignia for the air operations group, which is the compartment we're in. This is Radio Central again.
Yeah.
That's a bigger picture of that patch panel.
There's quite a few in that radio room.
So. Those were antenna patch panels in that other photo. This is all Radio Central.
Yeah, I was impressed by it. If you can't tell, there's going to be quite a few pictures of it. And so on the teletype machines, Jeff was kind enough to fire one of them up and let us hear how noisy one machine is going. You know, just to imagine what it would have sounded like in that room when all those machines were fired up and going crazy. I can't imagine.
Yeah, in that compartment, you'll notice on the bulkheads, there's actually acoustic insulation. And in a lot of Radio Central there is, and it's one of the only places on the ship where that is. And it was more to keep noises within the radio room from getting outside of the radio room, but you won't find that on many of the bulkheads in any other parts of the ship. That's all teletype. That's all teletype paper that came with the ship above those machines, by the way.
So interesting, because today is the ARRL Radio Roundup that starts here in about 5 minutes at 10 a.m. today until 4 p.m. tomorrow. And, 50 years ago, you could get some of this stuff and people would have it in their ham shack. Today, it's all computerized. So you don't hear all the clackety, clackety, clackety. So that's really interesting.
That's the door to one of the doors in Radio Central. That is the main door to Radio Central. There was a guy that sat behind that door, behind that little grate, and there was a black curtain that he pulled behind him. And if you needed to talk to anybody in Radio Central, you would have to talk to him through that grate. And that's the first aid station, right? Between our shack and where the captain's quarters were.
Yep.
You also want to mention, I don't think I have a picture, and I'm looking at Jim's picture. The thing about the oh, what do you call it? Those big heavy bags, and they put stuff in it and they throw it
Yeah.
over.
We've got some bags in the radio room that are weighted that, oh, that's the captain's galley, that were weighted so that if the ship was ever to be boarded or we needed to get rid of documents, they would put them in those weighted bags and throw them overboard. And we've got those in Radio Central as well.
Here's
Those are the
picture.
captain's pictures in the captain's conference room. Either captains or admirals. I don't know what it says there. No, that's commanding officers, so that's captains.
The different, just describe the two different where the admiral was or the captain was, two different rooms.
Yeah, the compartments are right next to each other. The captain had his own conference room and in-port quarters. In-port quarters being that that's where he stayed when the ship was in port, like it is now. He had his own other set of quarters up on the island, a very small compartment where he could be near, you know, where he had to be on the bridge. But when he was in port, he was actually on the deck that I'm on now. And he had a conference room, a galley where his food was made, and quarters where he slept. And right next to that, right adjacent to it, they had the same for the admiral, if there was an admiral on board.
I recall you telling me that there's those quarters for the captain, then there's one up by the bridge.
Yeah, the quarters that the captain has on the deck that our radio room's on were called the in-port quarters, and that's where he stayed when the ship was tied up in port. Otherwise, he had quarters up in the island near the bridge.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting watching some of the history on that, and just the fact that the captain was literally right there next to the bridge, and anytime they were making a course change or anything like that, they had to wake the captain up to let him know, and they were saying the captains did not get very much sleep.
Jim, were you up on the bridge? Because I didn't go up there. Did you guys get a bridge tour?
No, that wasn't included on our tour. I don't know if there's restoration things or if it's just not normally
It's
part of it.
probably a COVID thing because it's not as spacious up there.
Gotcha.
That's in the captain's in-port quarters. That is the captain's in-port quarters. So that's where the captain stayed when the ship was in port. You can see that's probably the most luxurious. Well, that compartment in the admirals are the most luxurious on the ship. That's the captain's conference room. Unfortunately, it's not set up right now, but. And that's one of the captains of the Hornet, Jocko Clark. He was a Native American, one of the first, if not the first, to command an aircraft carrier. And that's just some of his personal things in a little display we have in the captain's conference room. Admirals, and those pictures are in the Admiral's conference room, I believe. Oh, those are QSLs in our shack.
Talk about, I don't know where it is. Is it to the left, that little galley area you guys have?
No, it's actually on the opposite side of the compartment. That bulkhead's next to the passageway where you come in. There's the Apollo 11 boilerplate capsule that was used for testing landings. Hey, you got a good sunset picture too.
Great picture, Jim. Where is this, Jeff?
That, I believe, is on the hangar deck.
Yeah, that is.
like I said, there were 24 Essex-class carriers built during the war. They actually had plans for 32, but when the war ended, they canceled the other ones. These are all CIC. That's still CIC, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely another area that I was impressed by.
Yeah, there's the ship scoreboard up in the hangar deck.
Another CIC thing that I found interesting was that they were saying that they one of the few rooms on the ship that actually had air conditioning, you know, especially with air conditioning being.
Yeah, our compartment here had it too, but air conditioning now is leaving the doors open.
Yeah.
Back in the day, did they have heat on the ship or not?
You know, I am not certain. I would venture to say no, because I haven't seen anywhere any heat ducts, but I'm not sure for certain. But you got to remember that this ship was in the South Pacific during most of World War II, and they definitely did not need heat, especially down in the engine room.
What are we looking at? Is this radar?
That's the radar from our F-14. That's in the nose cone usually. It looks like torpedo room. Sick bay.
I like the skeleton on the bed there. That was from their Halloween party, I guess they.
Oh had. Yeah, you were there around Halloween. Okay, that guy's usually not there. We've actually got the front page from the San Francisco Chronicle when Apollo 11 landed here in the shack with Neil Armstrong wearing his Hornet +3 button. I don't know what that is.
That's part of the Apollo display on the hangar deck as well, where they are I thought it was funny because it was like a basically a destination declaration is for agriculture and other stuff, and
yeah, I see that
from the moon to Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I know where that is now. That's in that little section with all the Apollo stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is this part of the Apollo capsule?
Yeah, that's the back of the Apollo 11 boilerplate. They used this. It was a full-size mock-up for the Apollo 11 capsule, and what they wanted to do was to see if they would be able to land the Apollo 11 capsule on dry land instead of in the ocean. So they dropped it. And I forget how high they had it when they dropped it, but that was the end result. And then they said, well, time to move on to plan B.
This is 50 some odd years ago before SpaceX could land on the back on the ground. Eh?
Right. That's inside the Apollo 11 boilerplate. So that's a mock-up of the crew positions.
Talking about an RFI, I wonder how back in the day, with all the different radio stuff and frequencies, how they kept everything from getting into each other.
You would think there would probably be some, I would imagine. I went into one of the transmitter rooms and there was actually an antenna, a panel to link up to antennas, and there was one antenna marked amateur. So I know that at some point there were probably hams on board as well that were using possibly ship's antennas on the ham bands when they were on board. Maybe they were using it for Mars, I don't know. There's also a sign in there that said, please don't transmit if SWR is like over 4-1. I think they had it. I'm like, man, I get paranoid when it's 2-1. You can see there, if you go back to that, there's a little seal down there and kind of near the bottom right there. That's the presidential seal. Richard Nixon was standing right above that when they brought the astronauts on board for Apollo 11. And that's why the presidential seal's on the island. This plane was just actually restored, S2 Tracker, and it's painted in the markings of a plane that was lost during Vietnam off the Hornet. Plane was launched, crew never returned, and no trace was ever found. And this was just restored within the last year, and we're actually having a dedication ceremony for this plane, remembering the crew on January 22nd, so in a couple weeks. And that's the hangar deck.
This is the one area that I didn't really see much of except on the way out. So one thing I learned out of this is there's so much to see. So either going back or going down and staying overnight or having a 2-day thing. I can see that. I can see it be powerful. And maybe we can do something with the kids. It's even better.
That's the Apollo quarantine trailer. This one was from Apollo 14.
Tell me one thing that I'm a little unclear is how did they get from the top deck to this deck? There was elevators, a big elevator thing?
Yep. They just used an aircraft elevator to get them down. That's inside the quarantine trailer.
That's what we all need for COVID, right? Our quarantine trailers.
There's actually some of the astronauts signed that table, so I don't know which ones, but their signatures are on that table.
That's all we have there. What other questions might you have for Jeff or Jim and myself? We still got 24 people on.
I don't really have any questions, but it's just a fantastic presentation that I think we all appreciate. So thanks for doing it, guys.
Thanks. And I can't say it enough. You guys are all welcome to come down and just contact me, and I'll get it arranged so that you can get on the air from the ship.
Yes, again, if you go back to just one of the premise of ham radios, people helping people connecting with each other. One day I was on Talk Group, I think 91.
Yeah.
And he was on. He says CQ from the USS Hornet. Of course, my ears get loud, and so I get in there and we talk for 3 to 5 minutes or whatever. And I get it. He says go to the Facebook page. I followed up. One thing led to another. Had a conversation with him, and then I stored it in the back of my mind until I called Jim one day. He says, "Well, I'm going down tomorrow, so let me get connected." So the whole thing comes. So it's just, it's truly the fraternity of people helping people.
Yeah, and I need to mention we've got a DMR hotspot here in the radio room, so you can operate DMR from in here. And like I said earlier, we've got an FT8 station. So CW, single sideband, DMR, and FT8, whatever you feel like doing.
You got a SNARS talk group on that?
No, I've been using I've got a handheld program with some very basic stuff here. And I think my handheld has your group programmed into it, but I've never been on that talk group.
Just thought I'd ask.
I know that the handheld that I use, that I bring up here, has got it on there. I've got an old handheld that I brought up, an old DMR handheld that I just have, I think, our hotspot programmed with the 91, 93, California, just some basic ones.
Yeah. Yeah. How about Fusion? You do any Fusion?
No, we don't.
No. Just checking.
Of course, if somebody was willing to donate fusion equipment, we'd probably not have a problem setting it up in the shack so we could use fusion.
Ah. That's thinking.
Questions, thoughts, ideas, anything you want to chat about, either for Jeff or Jim or myself about the presentation or anything about SNARS? This is your opportunity.
I tell you.
When you see NB6GC on FT8, now you know it's us.
That's a good question. When you're either on say FT8 or if you're in a contest, do people really know? I mean, you're not chit-chatting. So
Well,
do you really say you're on the Hornet, or do people not really know?
On field day, we usually use a special call. The last couple of times we've done field day, we've been N6H. So we don't bother to tell people we're on the Hornet. Museum Ships Weekend's not a contest, so it's just like when you were on board talking to people. And we don't really do contesting from the ship, so it's not an issue normally. FT8, there's no way to know unless they look us up on QRZ or something.
Or unless you put something in that last 13 characters.
Yeah, we don't have anything programmed in there, so.
That's why I think when I was on the phone, or you could be on CW and you can chit chat to people, it must be pretty. It's very exciting. People are interested and they hear you, and you go from one person to another. It's not a huge pile up, like 20 guys, but you get 2 or 3 or 4 guys in there, and then you talk to one, and you say 73 QRZ or CQ, and the next person comes on. So you're kind of working on one by one.
And I mean, you can keep it pretty consistent throughout the day, so we don't have a problem making contacts once we get on the air.
Speaking about on the air, I'm looking at 20 meters right now for that ready contest. It is loaded with contacts.
Okay, good. So that's for the ARRL ready contest that's on right now.
Yeah, it's it's got all kinds of stuff in there.
Right.
Yep.
So we still got 20 guys on here. Eric, thanks for he's our webmaster K6CZH. He said he'll post the these recordings on YouTube. So I think we've been on quite a while. I want to give Jeff a break before he does his other thing. Any other questions or comments for Jeff or Jim or myself about the presentation?
I like to say is this: looking at the your battle record for that ship, and you multiply that by the ships we had throughout the years. We're badass, man. We are badass.
Well, like I said, there was 24 Essex class carriers, and then there was even more smaller carriers. So there was a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It says, man, we got the world's best, finest, best equipped, best trained people in the world.
Hornet was never.
We all know it.
Was never hit by kamikaze, torpedo, bomb, anything.
How many deck guns did you have on that thing?
When the ship was commissioned, a lot. There was actually 4 big dual 5-inch turrets forward and aft of the island. But after World War II, a lot of that armament was removed because the planes were moving a lot faster, and you really couldn't fire a gun like that and hope to hit anything. So there's still some 5-inch guns and some smaller stuff on the edges of the flight deck, but nothing like what the ship had. The ship had hundreds of weapons on it in World War II.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Definitely enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
Okay. Final call for comments for Jeff or Jim around this before we send them off. Anybody have anything else? Okay, hearing none. Tell us about the plastic over your, what I think is your right shoulder. It could be your left shoulder.
That's there because of the leak in the deck where the F-14 came through, and I never bothered to push it back up today. because I'm the only one here, so I've only got one HF radio on, and that's the our jury-rigged funnel into a garbage can to catch any water that might come in, and there wasn't too much there today, so everything stayed dry. But the F-14 came through in the compartment next door, and naturally it doesn't leak in that compartment, it leaks in ours.
Wes just wrote great history lesson. How true. We got a lot of good comments on here. You know, this was an amazing thing. I mean, the whole thing came together from one person helping another. And what I appreciate about today is the docening, the explanation, the perspective that Jim gave, what you gave, what I gave, the great questions. Hopefully we'll get a bunch of people to go down there, and it's on our YouTube channel. So whether people ever get a chance to go there or not, at least they get connected in on this. And I'll send you the links, and you can put it on your Facebook or wherever you want.
Okay.
On behalf of this, go ahead.
Part is getting on the air from here. That's the, you know, if you have a ham license, it's bonus. You can get on the air from the ship, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, on behalf of the Sierra Nevada Amateur Radio Society, SNARS.org, thank you so much for your generosity and all you do for ham radio and bringing a little bit of history to us.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you guys, and hopefully we'll eventually see some of you on board in the near future.
Again, at the Facebook page is facebook.com/November Bravo 6 Golf Charlie 73 from Reno, Nevada.
See you later.